Hello and welcome again, my friends. It is I, Commodore Urban, and welcome back, guys, to part 2 of my reading of the book Grandfather, Ship The S.S. United States by E.B. Fletcher. So let's go ahead and tune back to where we started at. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. On the way back from the ice cream shop, John sat in the front seat licking a double-scoop chocolate ice cream cone. Are we going to Penn's Landing to see the other ship now? You know, the one that's lonely? Grandfather looked at John. Lonely? Yeah, replied John. There aren't any ships near her, so she's got to be lonely. The gray ships have each other to keep them company. Grandfather gripped the steering wheel tightly and with a firm set jaw said, Huh. We've got to get back. Your mom and Grandma Liz would wonder where we've been. But Grandfather, the lonely ship is my favorite. Grandfather looked down at his grandson and his firm jaw melted. He sighed and said, Okay, sport, but we'll have to be quick. John nodded his head in agreement as he finished up the last of his ice cream and began to crunch the cone. As he munched away, his eyes were fixed on spotting the lonely ship he liked so much. As Grandfather and John drove slowly down Delaware Avenue, the black hull, white superstructure, enormous red, white, blue funnels of an aged luxury liner began to show over the top of the warehouses and buildings near where the ship was moored. Her exterior paint was faded, cracked, and flaking. Portholes were broken, and deck railings were bent or missing altogether. The lifeboats were gone as well. Grandfather pulled over and parked the car as John said, See? She's got to be lonely. I like to roll the window down and talk to her. I keep her company. Grandfather turned off the motor and got out of the car. John unbuckled himself, opened the door, and followed him. They walked quietly up to the chain link fence surrounding the restricted area. As John began chatting away, Grandfather's mind took him back to the summer of 1952 as he gazed at the ship in front of him. Amid flags flying and spray of fireboats and well-wishing from small harbor craft, Grandfather remembered the sleek new liner entering the port of New York for the first time. She was the Golden Girl, the pride of the United States lines and the United States Merchant Marine Fleet. Dazzling paint, pennant flags waving, she was captivating. And there we go. So there's the first illustration there. John looked up at his grandfather and said, Don't you wish you could go on her? Grandfather just stared ahead. Grandfather? Hey, Grandfather! Still Grandfather gazed ahead. John tugged on Grandfather's woolen coat pocket. Grandfather! Hey, Grandfather! Grandfather, suddenly realizing that someone was calling him, said, Huh? What? John repeated himself, said, Wouldn't you like to go on her? Grandfather abruptly backed away from the gates surrounding them and cleared in his throat, announced in a commanding voice, We've got to get underway. John was puzzled. Okay, Grandfather. John looked into his grandfather's steel blue eyes and saw tears. Grandfather walked briskly back to the car, pulling the collar of his tweed coat up near his chin. As the wind had begun to pick up, John watched his grandfather suspiciously. As the wind whistled around him, John thought he heard a voice call to him. It sounded like a lady's voice. He stood and listened. Grandfather, did you hear that? What? John looked slowly back at the ship and then at his grandfather. Oh, nothing. He climbed into the car while Grandfather buckled him in. All the while, John was staring at the ship again. He could faintly hear a voice calling him. John couldn't stop looking back at the ship as they drove away from the docks. He kept looking back until the ship was out of sight. Chapter 4. On the drive back to the house, John and Grandfather were quiet and reflective. When they walked through the front door, Grandma Liz out, Roy, is that you? Where have you two been? I've been worried sick. It's getting colder and John didn't have on his hat. John and Grandfather looked at each other and giggled softly. John covered his mouth with his hand. Grandfather leaned over, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, and said, Here, let me wipe that smudge of chocolate from your chin. We don't want to spend the night in the brig. The Commodoress would see to it. John giggled again as grandfather winked at him and gave him an impromptu spit bath. Grandma Liz came in the foyer wearing an apron, which was not a sight seen often. John looked at Grandma in disbelief. She hugged Grandfather and said, "Get your coats off and wash up. I'm fixing dinner because Barbara isn't feeling well. She'll be ready in about 10 minutes. Grandfather, questioning, looked at Grandma, reading his mind. She said, "Oh, nothing to worry about. She'll be okay in a couple more months." Grinning, Grandfather hung his coat and it helped John with his. As they climbed the stairs, John asked Grandfather, "Does Grandma Liz like to cook?" "Why do you ask that?" "'Cause I never see her in an apron. Ellen's always cooking when I'm at your house." Grandfather smiled. "She doesn't really like to, but she does know how." "Oh," said John, skipping the stairs. John and Grandfather went to the bathroom and wash up. John scooted his wooden stool over to the sink so that he could reach to wash his hands. As John was lathering up, he said to Grandfather, "You know, I'm hoping that when I'm 7, I won't need this old stool anymore." Grandfather laughed as he and John rinsed their soapy hands. "When you grow up, John, a lot of things will happen. Don't rush it. Try and enjoy being small in that stool. Had a stool like that myself once." At dinner that night, John relayed to his attentive audience all about the sights that he and Grandfather had seen, taking particular care to omit the trip to the ice cream store. Sunday was a typical lazy day. In the morning they went to Mass and then out to eat. After lunch, John climbed in Grandfather's lap with one of his favorite books and they read together. John liked to lean against Grandfather, feeling the warmth and security of the strong man. Whenever they read together, which hadn't been off very often, Grandfather would give John peppermint lifesavers as a treat for not missing too many words. John hadn't missed but 2 words a day, so Grandfather gave him a whole pack. That evening, when John was in bed, after having his bath, Mama came into his room and tucked him into bed. She kissed John and listened to his prayers. "John, you know that Grandfather and Grandma Liz are leaving tomorrow. They're going to get up and eat breakfast with us and then go." "I'll miss them," said John. "I'll miss them too, but they'll return on Friday on their way back from New York. You'll have that to look forward to, right?" "Yeah, okay, Mama." Replied Mama as she closed the blinds and turned on his nightlight. John hesitated and said, "Why does the lonely ship upset Grandfather?" Mama turned around and looked questioningly at John. "Why would you think that, sweetie?" "Because when he looks at it, he gets funny." "Funny?" "Yeah, he had raindrops in his eyes, like I do when I'm sad." Mama was now by John's bed, and she sat down quietly and said, "When did Grandfather have raindrops in his eyes?" "When we went to see the lonely ship yesterday." "I see," said Mama, looking distracted. "Mama, why is Grandfather sad about it?" Mama looked at John in the eye and said, "I think you need to ask Grandfather. He will tell you if you ask him." "Does Grandfather love the ship?" Mama's eyes filled with love for her young son, and she said, "Well, we love people, not things. But sometimes things, like the ship, take on so many memories of people that I guess we think they're real." "But the lonely ship is real, Mama. She talked to me yesterday." "She did?" said Mama, fluffing John's pillow and tucking him under the covers. "Yeah," said John. "I didn't hear exactly what she said, but she'd said something." Mama stroked John's head and said, "Then you must listen carefully next time so that you can hear exactly what she says." "Okay, Mama." Daddy came and stood in the doorway watching Mama tuck John in. "Can I come in, or is this conversation private?" "Come on in, sweetie," Mama said. "Good night, Slugger," said Daddy, walking over to John and kissing him on the forehead. "Night, Daddy," replied John as he snuggled down in the covers with his sailor bear. In Chapter 5. On Friday afternoon, before John got home, Grandfather and Grandma Liz arrived from their visit in New York. While Grandfather was resting from the trip, Grandma Liz helped Mother set the table for supper. "Liz," said Mama, "John told me about going with Ajax." That's what Mama called Grandfather because the ships had always been so clean. "To Penn's Landing last Saturday. Did Ajax say anything to you about it?" "No," replied Grandma Liz, looking concerned. "John told me that Ajax had tears in his eyes when he saw the ship, and John didn't understand that, of course." Ah, sighed Grandma Liz. It tears Roy up to see the ship so neglected, abused, and rejected. Oh, darling, she was a beauty. You should have seen her, those wonderful red, white, and blue smokestacks, the racing black hull. She was the fastest liner of her time. And oh, the celebrities that she carried to and from Europe. John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. Grandma looked at Mama sadly. She was quiet for a moment. Harry Manning, her first Commodore. John Anderson, her second. They're all gone now. Even Mr. Gibbs, her designer, is gone. Roy remembers it all. He is her last Commodore. One of the few left to see horrible fate alone. And there's nothing we seem to be able to do about the situation. It's funny people can't get enough about shipwrecks and death, but a liner which had an impeccable record, nothing. Mama stood looking at Grandma and said, John is asking a lot of questions about Ajax and the ship. I think he needs to know. Could you talk to Ajax and see if he tell John her history? Grandma closed her eyes for a moment, opened them, and said to Mama, I'll do my best. Mama hugged Grandma and said, You are the Commodore, so you know. Grandma Liz chuckled. Oh, go on. Alright, thank you. Alrighty, I think I'm going to cut it off here, guys, and tell the next part of the reading where we'll start on Chapter 6. This is Commodore Urban saying, have smooth seas and clear skies, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.